Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. Indian students in Canada are facing uncertainty over their post-graduation work permit applications after completing two-year programs and paying around $32,000 in tuition fees. Several graduates claimed that their programs were later considered ineligible for PGWP, leaving them unable to get the work permits they expected. They allege that eligibility rules changed after they enrolled. However, Canada's Immigration Department, IRCC, said that there has been no change in the rules and that students must meet specific program and institution requirements. Graduating from a designated learning institution alone does not guarantee PGWP approval. Remember, the PGWP allows eligible international graduates to gain Canadian work experience, which can help with future permanent residency options. But it's not just Canada where the future of Indian students hangs in the balance. Over 3 lakh Indian students studying in the United States on F1 visa are said to be affected by the new regulation of the Department of Homeland Security, which mandates that they transition to the new system automatically and have their authorized stay capped at a maximum of 4 years. So does studying abroad still mean that it should be taken up? Is it still worth it for Indians in 2026 is what we will discuss with our guest. Joining us on the platform is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Major General G.G. Dwivedi, defense and geopolitical expert with us on the program. Shruti Das Gupta, foreign affairs expert, joins us on the program. And last but not the least, Mr. Sameer Garwal, who studied at Portage College in Calgary, Canada, will be joining us shortly. All right. Ambassador Mukherjee, what is going on over here? Is it excessive jingoism on behalf of the Canadians and the Americans? Is this an anti-India campaign? Or is this some sort of an immigration reform that we've had a tough time wrapping our heads around? What is it to you, ma'am?
In my perspective, Vineet, this process actually started under Trudeau, under pressure from certain sections that were opposed to a large percentage of our students studying in Canada and then staying on legally with work permits, etc. The new Canadian government, it's not very new anymore, has not been able to reverse the process. And as a result, a lot of Indians who were planning to go to Canada are now deciding to go elsewhere where the system is more flexible, for example, Singapore, Australia, etc. What is more important is for the nation to reflect, for parents and families to reflect, for young Indians to reflect, that it is possible just after independence that the nation could not afford perhaps to give them highly specialized education in certain sectors. But that is not the truth anymore. What I am informed is that many of these Indian students are unable to compete in the highly competitive entrance exams for top Indian universities and therefore opt to go abroad to complete their studies, and in the process their parents sell off the land, mortgage their land, mother sells her jewelry, etc. It's a very, very traumatic experience. I think the nation needs to tackle this in a collective way. First of all, take up with the Canadians, of course, what is happening and try to restore some of the processes which prevailed prior to Trudeau. And on the other hand, make the education system in India more inclusive and give space to Indian students to study in Indian institutions of higher education, or where they cannot compete, they could look at other options like vocational education, etc. In the West, every student does not go in for tertiary higher education. They go for vocational education, they go for other options. Here in India, it seems to be like a status symbol that, oh, you must be at least MA pass. If you're not MA pass, you're not okay. This kind of thinking also has to go. As we become a major economy, there would be space for our students in lots of sectors. We must look at that, but at the same time, we must strongly take up with the Canadians Because if they went to Canada on the basis of certain expectations, and now those expectations are changed, that is a terrible thing for young people to have to go. Vinny.
General Dwivedi, what is your opinion on this? Is the America First agenda to prioritize domestic security, economic protectionism, and strict immigration enforcement coming in the way of Indian students who want to go and pursue the American dream? And let us not forget, sir, that the American tech landscape today would not be what it is without the infusion of Indian intellect.
Well, Vineet, firstly, always a pleasure to be on your show. You know, I belong to that part of the country, Punjab, where going abroad to study is actually a fad, and it's a first priority of not only students but also the parents that their children must go and study abroad. And there are a number of reasons for this. Firstly, let's take Canada because we are discussing this. Well, Canada education is definitely of high quality, and compared to US, it's cheaper, and also it lays down the pathway for PR, that is permanent residency. Because once you study there and you work for some time, then you have a high eligibility to be the getting the permanent representative. But the point is that over some time, this situation has changed. Just to give you statistics, sometime in 2023, around 3,25,000 students, Indian students, were in Canada, and that has fallen by almost 100,000. And this year, there's a drop of 50% for the visa applicants, and there are a number of reasons for this. First and foremost, I think the Canadian government also has tightened up because there are a number of students who they felt that they'll not be contributing to their either employment or the economy, because those jobs would be well taken up by the Canadians themselves. Secondly, the local market also has changed because this Canadian economy has slowed down, and therefore their jobs are actually come down. And thirdly, they have identified only certain institutions which can offer you the post-graduation work, but there are a number of institutions which are not been eligible, and there are agents in India who dupe these students, and then they find themselves that they are in a very tight corner. And also the certain programs like the diploma programs are not eligible for the post-graduation post-work, and so therefore a number of the students find themselves in a lurch. And of course there are two also other important reasons why these students go abroad. Let's face the fact, the Indian higher education system, the only very few excel or they make the cut like IITs or IIMs, but other university colleges, they figure nowhere. We don't even have one university of higher learning in top 100. So therefore the rush is there. And you also ask about America, the same system is there. They also become very concerned because number of times these students at times they find that they are more of a baggage than they are going to be asset. But then there is a flip side of it, because this is where the Indian now colleges and institutions are getting more students, because there was a serious drop in our admission. My wife, she heads the oldest women college in India in Jalandhar, and there was a definite drop. Now the students again are falling back to the own system, but also in same breath I will say that India's education system also now is reviving and also evolving. There are a number of programs, the Kaushal Kendra, the vocational center have been made up, and number of efforts are being made, and I myself on the faculty development program, and there is an all-round effort that our system also must match up with the foreign system. But for time being, I think we need to sensitize our students that they should be very careful when they select the colleges, when they select the program, because all colleges, all programs do not offer you the post-graduate work permit. So that is one. And second point is that we need to also notch up our standards so that our students do not feel that their future is only abroad. Vineet.
Well, you have made a very potent point, sir, that instead of criticizing what the Americans are doing, Shruti, we perhaps also need to introspect on how to make our universities world class these are not the Nalanda days that I'm talking about. I'm talking about 2026, where India just sent, a few satellites into space through sky route. I'm very confident it can be achieved. What do you think needs to be done? We necessarily don't need to, in fact, get angry with the Americans or the Canadians. What we need to do is perhaps get angry at our own lethargy of not producing these world-class universities at home.
You're absolutely right there. We were trying. Okay, the change doesn't happen overnight. Each program that is released, let's just look at the National Education Policy, which was released in 2020. At the graduate level and undergraduate level, it is still being implemented and still being actuated to bring about the change that it needs to bring in college level education. We are looking at a future where we have a large bulge of our population looking at our own institutes and finding them short of what they desire at their graduation level, the kind of employability they will get out of spending that kind of money and effort into getting into those colleges and getting those degrees. Beyond that, we are very, very restricted in our research fields. We are not as much, we don't employ as much efforts into developing thinking mindsets. I think a lot of our education, unfortunately, still suffering through the Macaulay mindset, is set in trying to produce better clerks, better workers, better busybodies, than turn around and produce brilliant minds that the recent space rocket launch showed us. That is an exception. The rule is most of us are better, worker bees, and that is why we tend to put in a lot of effort. We are hard workers. We go outside, whether we are inside or outside, working for an MNC, working abroad, working in India. We are good workers, but we have very few leaders that actually come up abroad. And we are very, because of whatever our history is, we are very low in terms of risk takers. We don't like taking a lot of risk. We don't like putting ourselves out there as students or entrepreneurs. So there are a large, it is a social problem, I would say, at large, where we tend to realize that we do not find ourselves comfortable with what India has to offer, and so we're looking outside. And to kind of help the transition, while USA and Canada have been doing their own thing by tightening it up, that taking away these kind of programs that allow local temporary economies to flourish, like in terms of housing or temporary workers, etc. And they want only the elite class, how it used to be earlier. Let's take in the 90s or so, where going abroad and studying was a very big elite thing. Now I think it's much more common than what you would hear at that time. So they want to go back to that model. They only want the cream of the crop, while you want to keep your own cream of the crop inside the country, and you have not the kind of institution that we need to have to retain that talent in India. So they want your talent, and you want to improve your own infrastructure to keep your talent at home. To bridge the gap, while your entire curriculum refreshment and your entire education programs are coming into force, India is doing all these MOUs. If you look at each individual MOU, whether it would be Australia, whether it would be UK with France, Italy, UAE, we are having a small segment always dedicated to students. There is a small number of visas. You'll see there the student visas are going to be accommodated, programs are going to be held, dual degree universities are going to be set up in India, the gift city, etc. So there are going to be some local hubs encouraged here. There will be a certain amount of quota increased there. Work permits will be given. Germany is an example of that. 3-year work permit is going to be given. So what the US and Canada are trying to keep the cream, there is already a space being created in the other nations to absorb the people who do want to go out and are still unsatisfied with their current education system, to find their space, to find the way they want to grow. And they have that kind of thing flowing there. They just not, I guess, explored that opportunity. There are, of course, a few left behind, the ones that are protesting outside in Calgary, who find themselves shortchanged because the promises made are not going to be met because of the changing policies of the nation, of the host nation. They, of course, will have to be looked at a different, microscope. They cannot be put on the same lens. But India is doing what it needs to do at home also, but it needs to accelerate, bridge the gaps, make sure that by the time the rest of your Gen Z population and your Gen Alpha population comes back into the college mode, you have a full full-fledged institutional model ready to encourage the best of the best to stay back in the nation and work for the nation, so that you have more of these rocket launches and other tech developments happening at home where you're trying to project yourself as a manufacturing hub. Talent is key for any of those developments. So we are doing what we need to do. It's just that the awareness quotient of it is going to be slightly low as of now. Hopefully with conversations like these, students will now start looking at what Germany is offering, or what Italy is offering, or what Australia is offering, and may probably find themselves satisfied with, okay, maybe it cannot be Canada and USA anymore, but there are other abroad opportunities that are open to me as a student who's unsatisfied with what India has to offer.
You're quite right, Shruti. Let me also bring in Sameer Garwal, who studied at Portage College in Calgary, Canada. Sameer, appreciate you joining us. What do you think of Canada, tightening its law, its legislation, its regulations when it comes to students, and how long they can stay, and what kind of visa formalities they need to adhere to?
So first of all, hi everyone. I just joined late, and I'm sorry about that. So first of all, like Canada is one of the best countries to have education around here, and I was an international student. I recently applied for my work permit as well, and recently got refused for that as well. Um, they
Did you say
it's
you
been
got?
like
Did you say your
3
work permit got
sorry.
refused?
My work permit got refused on 8th of July, and like I was an international student. Like I was studying in the Portage College. I joined them in May 2024. It was a business accounting diploma. It was a non-credit course. There were no policies which says that this program doesn't allows or it's eligible for getting a work permit after completing the course. So me and there are thousands of students who are enrolled in this course across the Canada, Edmonton, and Calgary. There are two campuses for this college. I have studied from the Calgary campus. Then I was not aware that there would be such this headache after completing this course. Otherwise, I have to change this course and all. First of all, Canada has changed their policies. Like last 2 years, there were many policy changes. First of all, I would say when we joined, there were policies which allowed us to enter Canada. So there is a specific requirement when you are applying for the Canadian visa, you have to bring up one GIC certificate, which is a guaranteed investment certificate. It costed us around $10,000 like initially, but later on the policy was changed and they opted like you have to bring around 20,000 Canadian dollars as a proof of fund that you could sustain here without like any job or something. And apart from that, there is another capping of students' working hours, which was 24 hours per week, which made us work like for a very short term. And here, the education is expensive. So, as we compare to international students and domestic students pay one-fourth of what we international students pay. So, suppose international students are paying $8,000 per semester. So, the $8,000 would be the 1 year cost for the domestic students. Here, we are like, uh, I would say that it's very confusing and it's very depressing and stressful. Like the process is going
How
to
is the
change, and
treatment? How is the treatment towards Indian students by the immigration and the naturalization department employees?
well, I won't say that it's specifically they are cutting us off and they don't want us here anymore. So first of all, from 2022 to 2024, in Canada, international students has brought around 37 point something billions in the economy of Canada, which is like way good for the Canadian government as well. And capping the number of students would allow this to reduce the number of economy which is flowing in this industry. I would say, and Canadian immigration has tightened the laws just because the rising number of temporary worker residents, as they mentioned in such interviews or any web forms or something. I don't believe like they are like specifically cutting off to the students, but there are like other aspects as well, which is taken care by the IRCC, which is the head body
Okay.
of the immigration.
I
I don't.
understand your predicament. I understand your predicament. I want Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee to come in. Uh, Ambassador Mukherjee, obviously, all of this is being done under the garb of technicalities, right? It's those contracts and forms that these kids end up signing, which have these explanations somewhere embedded in them, but nobody actually assumes that they would come true one day, and that's exactly the legal recourse or backup that countries like Canada and the United States are pursuing.
Well, first of all, I would like to tell Samir that I really feel uh, very sorry for the kind of trauma that he's gone through. And I would like to add that actually it's a wake up call. Whether the Canadian authorities treat him with respect or not, and I'm glad they do, it's a wake up call for Canada to understand a message that we should deliver to them as Indian government, that our students are going there, they are bright, they are great, and they are bringing money into your economy, which is going into a recession because of Trump. You actually need us, our students, India's money for your educational program. Please don't think that if you cut off Indian students, they can't go elsewhere. First of all, they have the option always to stay in India, but they can go to Australia, they can go to Singapore, they can go to lots of other places where they would be made to feel most welcome. So they should not think that these Indian students are just riffraff off our streets, there with a begging bowl, etc. The concept that they had of India in the early 60s, long before Samir was born. I would say, in fact, that we should actively sensitize families from states sending, like General Dwivedi talked about Punjab. There must be also students from Bengal, I presume, I don't know. But we should actively sensitize students and their families that this appears to be not a good time to go to Canada or United States, waste your hard-earned money, sell your land, your jewelry, etc., because they don't seem to have good prospects to stay on there and pursue future studies, etc. And we should actively encourage them first to look within India, and if within India is not possible, then to look for other places where they are not only made to feel welcome, but where it's cheaper and where the opportunity for job experience is embedded in the college fees they face, because that job experience is essential to get a job anywhere, even in India. So I think it's a wake-up call. And as far as Punjab is concerned, and General Dwivedi would know more than me, but I do understand that in Punjab, even in Punjab, there is a rethinking among Punjabi families about sending their kids automatically to Canada or US. They are looking at other destinations, and I'm happy about that. I'd like General Dwivedi to confirm that. I think this is positive development we need, in my perspective.
General Dwivedi, there was also a time, post-independence, that if you went abroad, approximately 100 to 200 people dropped you off at the airport. That doesn't happen anymore, right? And that tells you that those times are gone. The allure of overseas also has to be looked at from a practical prism, sir.
Absolutely, Vineet, it's a complex issue. You rightly, very rightly said that that lure or the charm has definitely faded or diluted. In fact, I recall one of our former vice president. He said that going abroad is a disease, but I like to actually qualify that disease has now no more confined to only elites. Every common person also has that aspiration to go abroad. Having said that, I think we need to address the issue from four perspectives. Firstly, all our students who are going out, they must be very clear what program to go, what university to go, and they should not be duped by the agents. Secondly, our parents, should they pick up very heavy loans? I know a couple of cases where they picked up very heavy loans, sent their children abroad, but they have not been able to get the postgraduate work permit because they actually were ill informed. Thirdly, Vineet, because I teach in number of top of the line institutes, especially MBA programs, today 40% of our graduates under 25 are unemployed. That's not a very happy state. And that's why these students go abroad, because they know that they, even after getting graduation, they have no scope for getting job except for very top people who top the IIT or IIMs, but otherwise who are below 90%, they have to find the foreign pastures. And national education policy, well, they thought that this is, panacea for all ills, but national education policy has actually failed to deliver because, first and foremost, we don't have the faculty to ensure or to put those program practically into the classes. And the second point is the funding. As per the NEP, government was supposed to spend 4% on the education, and that current allocations are far below that target. And the third very important point is that we need to scale up the standard and quality of our education. Beneath only, I think, couple of days back, Niti Ayog had made a statement that 93,000 schools have closed down. In fact, no one wants to go to the government schools. All our government here, who said we have revived the school, just painted the walls, and that's about all. I think the whole issue must be addressed at the school. While every child want to go to private school, no child want to go to government school, and that's, I think, where the problem starts. And the more than that, higher education comes only once you have a sound schooling, school education, and that's where the government needs to actually address. And my final point is, Vineet, our young people are assets. It is their future we have to ensure that we make the future safe. Rest all will fall in place. Whether you're 5 trillion economy or 10 trillion economy, if 40% of graduates are unemployed, that means nothing. It's a time that government gives full attention to the education right from the schools to the higher level, so that this trend of going abroad actually is curtailed and we are able to make quality education in our country, and there's no more brain drain, because they're very heavy brain drain. Best of the best are going abroad. I think this is a real challenge, and we need to take it squarely and in right earnest, Vineet.
You're quite right, sir. In fact, if you compare to the number of public schools to 2012, there are 1.5 lakh lesser schools today in India. And if you compare the number of teachers that were wanted in 2012, that was 8 lakhs in 2012, and today it's 10. So definitely the education system in our country is on its way to the ICU. I'm not saying it is right now. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Appreciate everybody who joined in and shared their thoughts. Thank you so much. We take a short break. Be right back.